Hi, I'm Jamie Flinchball, and today I want to talk to you about trust. Trust is an elusive concept, but it's thrown about in business language and transformational change discussion all the time. It's very fundamental, especially to a change such as lean. If you look at a lean transformation in particular, leaders have to trust their people. They have to empower them to follow processes, to develop solutions, to work their problems. And people have to trust their leaders in their intention about why we're on this lean journey, about where we're going. And all of them have to trust in the process and the methods that help get them there, including how their processes and standards work. So trust is this fundamental ingredient, yet we often talk about just simply granting trust. I'm going to give that person trust. I've decided to trust them. I'm going to ask for your trust. But that's a very fragile thing. It's a one-step ask. And quite frankly, trust is usually broken in one step, but it's not built in one step. To build trust in an organization or between two people, it takes many steps, many actions to get there, to have something that you can build the foundation of your transformation upon. An example of why this is so important is take the simple act of problem solving. If a leader assigns or delegates problem solving to a team, they might give them resources, give them scope, give them intention, give them boundary conditions. But then they empower that team to take the process of problem solving and work that problem to a conclusion. If at the end they come back and everything is challenged, their conclusions, their process, their method, and ultimately not followed through on and supported, well, we've just wasted a lot of people's time, energy, and trust. So it's this fundamental step that has to be part of these actions in lean. So I went about trying to study trust and how it's built, how it's constructed, what makes it tick day after day. And I've drawn the conclusion of what I call the 4 C's of trust. 4 key ingredients that help you build trust or rebuild trust when you need to. Those 4 C's are care, communication, competence, and consistency. And we're going to talk about each one of those 4 throughout this video. The first aspect is the demonstration of care. Now, there's a couple different ways you can approach this. First, the ethical approach. This is about leaders who truly care about the individual or about the team or about the organization. It is based on this fundamental tenet of respect for people. You care about their outcomes, you care about their financial future, you care about their emotional state, you care about their personal lives. And certainly, and we've seen books and books of this, that some of the most effective leaders of all time had a tremendous ethical respect for people, a tremendous care for the people they worked for and the people that worked for them. Now, I don't want to sit here and try to convince you that you should change your ethos, that you should change your ethic to one that is centered on respect for people. Certainly, there's plenty of history behind how important that is. But if you aren't there, if you don't believe in that, there's plenty of leaders out there who are getting great results, organizations are crushing it, that really have not made that the center of who they are as a leader. Now, it's not that they hate people, it's not that they despise or treat their people badly, but that respect for people, that care, is not at the center of who they are as a leader. And so if that's who you are, then at least there's the idea of adopting what I call a functional belief in care. The functional belief in care is not about respect for people, it's about respect for what people can do, what they can accomplish, what they can deliver. And so if you don't respect the person themselves, if you don't have that care for the person themselves, you can at least find a way to care about what that person's capability is, what it can do, what it can deliver. And so, one might be better than the other, and we could argue that for a long time, but fundamentally, whether it's a functional view of care or it's an ethical view of care, either way, you care about that person's ability to do their work. that person's state of mind, that person's environment, that person's surroundings that allows them to be successful, allows them to be productive. And so fundamentally, that allows you, whether it's functional or it's ethical, to then demonstrate care. And that word demonstrate is super important. You can't just decide that you care. You can't just believe in people. You actually have to demonstrate care. Now that could be through the form of sacrifice, giving something up, doesn't have to be financial, but making some sacrifice that allows other people to be served first. This can be as simple as the adage of leaders eat last, right? That allowing other people to get what they need before you do. Right? So do you sacrifice in some way that demonstrates that you care about what other people are experiencing, going through, or need? Certainly interest in what they can do, what they have done, is another way to demonstrate care. When they present their problem-solving effort or their improvement effort, do you simply nod and say thank you, or do you ask detailed questions that show that you listen, that you're interested, that you care about what they've done, what they've invested themselves in? And also removing barriers based on not ROI, but based on what frustrates people. When you can remove barriers of things that frustrate people, that get in their way, you've demonstrated that you care about their environment, about their work, about their situation, without doing the calculation, but because that person was frustrated by that situation. So having care, whether it be functional or ethical, is not enough. We also have to demonstrate care in a meaningful way so that people really understand that we believe and we respect their situation. The next C in building trust is communication. Now, it's not just that we communicate or how much we communicate. It's really about when and what we communicate. So fundamentally, information gaps, when we leave those information gaps open, they're filled with rumor, they're filled with doubt, they're filled with fear. And it makes it impossible to build trust in an environment where rumor, doubt, and fear starts to exist. And so information gaps, communication gaps, can really be a breeding ground to destroy trust in your organization. So people's beliefs are not a function of what we communicate. Many leaders that I've coached over the years will talk about what they're ready to communicate with people and what they're not ready to communicate with people. And that's a fine distinction between those two. It's okay to make that distinction, but it's not just that people believe what you decided to share. They also start to believe what you haven't communicated. Right? They're in that non-communication, in that gap, are other elements, are other doubts, other ideas, other concerns, other rumors that fill that void. And so people's beliefs, people's understanding is a function both of what is communicated and what isn't communicated. It's not just that we get to decide what people understand. So we have to understand that people are going to believe what they believe. And the more we communicate, the more we control what people believe, because we've crowded out the parts that we have not communicated. Now, as far as building trust, the most important part of communication is the why. The why sets the context for things. How did you make a decision, and why did you make the decision? What's the why behind that decision? If people see three independent decisions and they don't see a common why, there might be a belief that there's an arbitrariness to that decision-making process. But if I understand the why, I can see the commonness, I can see the process that a leader goes through. Rejections are perhaps the most important place where we start to set context and share the why. Whether it's a job interview, for how many people were told that you were great, but someone was just more qualified. Did they really walk away believing that there was nothing negative that you found and marked down? So ideas. We talk about idea systems and teams that bring suggestions forward, improvements forward, solutions forward. And if they are rejected for whatever reason, and that's certainly fine and going to be part of improvement, then why? Why was the idea rejected? People will accept it. They might not like it, but they will accept it if they understand it. If they aren't shared the why, if they aren't shared the context, they will often fill that void with some of the worst intentions. So why helps people establish context? It helps them understand the principles behind which you operate. And ultimately, when people understand your principles, when people understand the context, then they can operate from a position of trust. And that's why communication is so fundamental to building and maintaining trust. The third C is competency. Competency is what delivers on the promise, whatever that promise might be. So without a competency, then we really end up trusting in someone's intentions. And fundamentally, intentions are not enough. Many people have good intentions, but can't deliver on the promise of their intentions because they lack the competency. I'm not talking about broad competency, I'm talking about specific competency. Whatever that competency is to deliver on your promise, that is what's needed for trust. So this goes in both directions. The competency of a leader matters. When a leader asks the organization to trust them, where they're taking the organization, where they're leading them to, that depends on that leader's competence and that organization's belief in that leader's competence. Just the same as when a leader delegates a task, a process, a decision, whatever it might be, when they empower their team, there is a belief in that competence. And so where there's struggles is when someone's wanting to delegate but can't because the competence isn't there. It's not strong enough. And where many leaders struggle is that they sort of gloss over that fact. They don't come clean with why the task isn't delegated, why the team isn't empowered. And so then trust breaks down because the context, the communication, is not well understood. So there's two fundamental things that we need to do to tackle this challenge of competence. First, we need to invest deliberately in building competence. This means we have to understand the gaps, we have to manage them, whether they be organizational, whether they be individual, whether we solve them through training, through coaching, through investment, through hiring. We can solve that problem anyway, but we need to deliberately work on competence. It's the only way that we build the trust to deliver on our processes and our capabilities in both directions. The other part is that we have to make the competence and the achievement of competence transparent. So, for example, if I don't delegate something because I don't believe that a team is quite capable to deliver on what I'm asking them to do, if I'm not transparent about why that is and what we're doing about it, then the belief behind it is more often to be one of lack of trust rather than lack of competence. Only when we are transparent, whether it be a manager and their employee or organizational wide, around competence and building of competencies, do we start to trust that the competence is part of our process. It's part of our promise. It's part of our delivery. And so when we have that competence, which is often the most ignored part of building trust, when we manage that competence, then we know, we can sort of believe in that trust behind it because we know that tomorrow will be better than today, that we'll be building competence, that we'll get stronger individually and collectively. And then trust isn't the factor. It's really just a matter of what we're able to achieve and what we're not yet able to achieve. And that's why competence is such an important ingredient for trust. The fourth C of building trust is consistency. It's about how often you're able to deliver on all the other elements. For example, there's someone I've worked with for years who I believe has the best of intentions. They really want what's best for the outcome, for the situation, for the other person. They also have the competency. When they choose to, they're able to deliver on their promise. The difficulty lies in the fact that they overcommit. They don't plan, they don't have a system of work, and so they are not consistent in delivering on their intention. It's not because they're not capable. It's because they don't have a system of work that allows them to be consistent. As a result, I've learned not to trust that person. Again, I trust their intentions, just not their ability to deliver. And so consistency is about that ability to deliver time after time. Now, what can we do about this? Well, standard work is a core ingredient, right? Whether it's for a process that we build that enables us to deliver day after day, or our personal standard work. What do we use? What is our system of work to ensure that we can deliver consistency in what we do each day? We also need feedback and reflection. We need to reflect on our ability to deliver, and we need feedback when we don't. Perhaps the most important thing we can design in our processes is the ability to quickly identify and feedback gaps early in a process. Because when a gap is identified early and corrected, that consistency is maintained. Sure, it might have taken an extra step to get there, but it didn't go left unanswered for a long period of time. So whether it's your process, your organization, or yourself individually, do you have a system of work, and not just good intentions, to deliver on your promise with competence on a consistent basis? Only when you answer that with a yes, do you have what it takes to build trust in your relationship and in your organization. Now that we've covered the 4 C's of trust of care, communication, competence, and consistency, I have an ask of you. First, please ask questions and comment below. I will respond with additional videos or articles to the questions and comments, as I would like to go deeper into this topic, and I'd like you to go deeper with me. Secondly, I'd really like you to take the survey that's linked in below. This survey is really going to ask about the 4 C's, which are most important, and about your strategies to deal with them. It's a rather short survey, and the people who complete the survey will get a first response in terms of the results that we accumulate. Once the survey is complete, we'll replace that link with a link to the article which will be produced at the end of this process, which will share, of course, the 4 C's as well as the survey results themselves. Thank you very much, and look forward to hearing from you.